The flight attendant's voice rose loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm going to ask you one last time. Move to the back of the plane, or I will call security." Her words were sharp, her tone dripping with condescension. Naomi, calm as ever, looked up at her. "I've already told you I'm not moving," she said simply, her voice even and almost soothing. Yet, it carried an undeniable strength. Naomi had just been humiliated in front of everyone, but no one expected what would happen next. The woman they thought was powerless stood up, revealing who she truly was. As we dive deeper into the story, if you believe in treating everyone with respect, regardless of their color, hit the subscribe button and let us know where you're watching from. The plane shone under the afternoon sun, its sleek design promising luxury. Inside, passengers were surrounded by plush leather seats, gold accents, and an air of exclusivity that made them feel like royalty. Expensive luggage rolled behind them as they were ushered toward the private jet awaiting on the tarmac. Soon, they settled into their seats, some scrolling through devices, others sipping champagne, as the attentive flight crew made their rounds. A soft ambient music played in the background. Among the passengers was Naomi Williams, a composed woman in her late 30s, dressed in a tailored navy blazer and matching slacks. Naomi exuded understated elegance. She moved with quiet confidence, making no effort to draw attention to herself. Naomi Williams entered the cabin, her calm presence immediately drawing attention. Her steps were measured as her gaze swept the cabin briefly, before heading toward her seat. Her journey wasn't just another trip, it was a mission to oversee her growing empire. Though no one knew it yet, she preferred to keep it that way for now. Lauren, the lead flight attendant, stood near the entrance. Her uniform was perfectly tailored, her sharp features exuding control. She greeted the passengers one by one, her smile warm for some, colder for others. Lauren prided herself on maintaining order, though her idea of order often depended on how people looked or behaved. When she greeted Naomi, her tone subtly shifted, a curt, "Welcome aboard," without the warmth. Behind Naomi, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond sat. The seasoned couple, in their 60s, exuded ease. Mrs. Raymond clutched a small knitting bag, fingers already twitching to begin her work. Mr. Raymond carried a folded newspaper, mildly curious as he took in the scene. Lauren's smile brightened as she greeted them. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond. Lovely to have you with us again." Naomi noticed the stark contrast in Lauren's tone but remained calm. Her expression showed she was aware of the unspoken dynamics at play. As the passengers settled, Lauren moved through the cabin, ensuring everything was in order. She checked on the Raymonds, offering a bright smile. "Is there anything I can get for you before we take off?" Mrs. Raymond shook her head, already absorbed in her knitting. Mr. Raymond nodded toward his coffee, signaling his satisfaction. When Lauren reached Naomi, her demeanor shifted. She glanced at Naomi's bag resting neatly under the seat, her lips pressing into a thin line. Without a word, she walked by, offering neither courtesy nor warmth. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's attitude shifted based on appearances? Share your experience in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Lauren, in her early 40s, carried herself with the precision of someone who thrived on control. Her pristine uniform and perfectly coiffed hair matched her sharp demeanor. To Lauren, appearances mattered most, and her judgments were swift and unapologetic. Her eyes narrowed as she observed Naomi. Something about Naomi didn't sit right with her. Not her clothes, not her calm self-assurance, and certainly not the fact that she didn't immediately seek attention like the other passengers Lauren deemed worthy of respect. In Lauren's mind, Naomi simply didn't belong. She approached Naomi with quick, purposeful strides, her lips curling into a tight smile. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, her tone polite but laced with condescension. "I think you're in the wrong section." Naomi looked up at her, her expression calm. "I believe this is my seat," she replied steadily. Lauren's smile didn't waver, but her tone sharpened. "I don't think so. This section is reserved for our elite passengers." Nearby, the other passengers began to notice. A nosy socialite leaned slightly to get a better view, her curiosity piqued. A friendly businessman across the aisle glanced over, frowning slightly at Lauren's tone. Naomi remained composed, her gaze steady as she replied, "You might want to double-check your passenger list before making assumptions." Lauren's eyebrows arched, her irritation barely hidden. "I don't need to check anything," she said sharply. "I know who belongs here and who doesn't." The tension in the cabin thickened, and passengers exchanged glances, whispering quietly. Some, uncomfortable, pretended not to notice. One muttered, "Why doesn't she just move if she's in the wrong seat?" Another shrugged, "She's probably trying to sneak in for a free upgrade." Lauren crossed her arms, standing her ground. "If you don't move to the back of the plane," she said loudly enough for others to hear, "I'll have to call security." Naomi tilted her head slightly, her calm expression unwavering. "Call whoever you need to," she said. "But I'm not moving." The nosy socialite gasped softly, and the businessman leaned forward, brow furrowed. Lauren, now visibly frustrated, turned to the junior flight attendant, Grace, who was nearby and watching nervously. "Grace," Lauren snapped, "escort her to the back now." Grace hesitated, glancing between Naomi and Lauren. She wanted to speak up, to mention checking the passenger list as Naomi had suggested, but Lauren's sharp glare froze her in place. Reluctantly, she nodded and stepped forward. Naomi shifted slightly in her seat, her demeanor still calm. "You might want to think carefully about what you're doing," she said softly, her words carrying more weight than Lauren realized. Lauren scoffed, dismissing the warning. "I know exactly what I'm doing," she said. "Now, get up. What would you do if someone treated you like this on a flight?" Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more stories like this. As Lauren's unease continued to grow, she tried to regain control of the situation, but Naomi's quiet confidence seemed to unravel her composure more with each passing second. The passengers in the cabin, sensing the shift in power, grew more tense, their eyes darting between Naomi and Lauren, wondering what would happen next. Naomi, still seated, appeared unbothered, her gaze unwavering, her posture regal and composed. There was a calm authority in the air around her, a silent strength that was undeniable. The passengers, most of whom had been quietly observing, began to shift in their seats, their unease becoming palpable. Lauren, trying to shake off the growing discomfort, turned her attention away from Naomi, focusing on her other duties. Yet, the tension in the cabin remained, thick and heavy. Naomi's composed silence seemed to haunt her, as though the entire plane was holding its breath. Then, the flight attendant's phone rang, breaking the silence. It was Grace, who had discreetly reached out for help. The call came through, and Grace, standing a few steps away, had been secretly working behind the scenes, contacting security to report what was unfolding. As Lauren fumbled with the phone, trying to regain her authority, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. There was something about Naomi that felt entirely different from the usual passengers she dealt with. Her calm defiance, her unwavering resolve, hinted at something more than just an ordinary traveler. Meanwhile, Naomi's gaze remained steady, though the weight of her silence was almost deafening. She could feel the room shift, could sense the cracks forming in Lauren's previously unshakable confidence. Naomi wasn't just fighting for a seat on the plane anymore, she was fighting for respect, for fairness. Her strength was not in what she said, but in how she carried herself, how she stood firm in the face of adversity. And in that moment, Lauren, still trying to regain her control, felt a sense of dread rise within her. The passengers watched, unsure of what would happen next, but for one thing was certain. This encounter had already shifted something in the air. The moment felt poised on the edge of something bigger, and as the flight continued, everyone on board couldn't help but wonder if they were about to witness the culmination of something much greater than a mere flight dispute. With security on the way, the atmosphere in the cabin became electric, the tension unmistakable. Naomi's eyes never left Lauren, as though silently daring her to make the next move. What would happen next would determine the outcome, but one thing was certain. Naomi's strength had already changed the entire dynamic of the situation.